All right, something happened over the weekend while we were away from in the building, and that is the death of the great George Foreman, Marshall's own and lifelong Houston resident, the Beast Texan, the great George Foreman entered boxing Valhalla. Tell you about George Foreman. My dad is a massive boxing fan. Certainly was when I was a kid. My father's all-time favorite boxer was Muhammad Ali. Matter of fact, one of my favorite t-shirts is this one right here, and I don't wear it as much as I used to because I didn't want it to get worn out. And so I pulled this t-shirt out of my closet today, and I don't wear it as much. Yeah, maybe some of y'all that have watched our show for a while, maybe you've seen this shirt. You've seen me wear this from time to time. And this is the promotion, one of the promo posters for the Rumble in the Jungle. Very cool. It's an Ali, obviously, it's an Ali promo. My dad's favorite athlete all time, I think, regardless of sport, is Ali, my father, and that's one of the reasons I got a couple of Ali shirts, just because I was little, but I mean I'm a fan of Ali, but not like my dad, obviously. But anyway, I've got a couple of Ali shirts because my daddy was a huge fan of Muhammad Ali, and so this on the back of this Ali shirt is the one of the promotional posters for the fight. Zaire with a map of the entire African continent, and then 74 there at the bottom, which, by the way, was the year that I was born, which makes this shirt even more cool. This shirt here, it looks like a Led Zeppelin concert T-shirt from the 70s. But anyway, that's one of my favorite shirts. The great George Foreman. So I was, an infant. Actually, I was born in November of 74, and I guess that fight was right before I was born. My mother was very, very pregnant with me when that fight went down in Kinshasa in Kenya, or Zaire rather. And so I don't remember that, obviously, but in the 80s, once I got cognizant of sports and started liking sports and stuff, then um, I was able to start getting into sports with my dad, and boxing obviously was huge with him. And that's when George Foreman made his insane comeback in the late 80s. And that was one of the first big sports stories, sports happenings that I really, really got enthralled by as a little kid, was George Foreman's comeback after he had been retired for what, 10 years or something like this. And he comes all the way back, has setbacks, but keeps at it and winds up winning the heavyweight title. And probably the greatest comeback certainly in the history of the heavyweight boxing division, if not if not, all of boxing. So pretty cool. And to hear that Big George Foreman lost his battle with old age over the weekend sucked. And so that sucked. A lot of memories watching George's comeback and really getting into boxing. And Tyson blew up in the mid '80s, and then Foreman started his comeback late '80s, early '90s. Mike had fallen apart by the time George was fighting for championships, and by the time George I came back. Tyson was already, had already gotten beat by Buster Douglas. This is right before Evander Holyfield took off and really took over the heavyweight ranks, and pretty cool to have George Foreman, taking over the boxing headlines in those days the way he did. So saw that George passed and wanted to jump on today and just mention that real quickly. Also saw today where UT basketball is hiring Sean Miller years after they should have hired him to begin with. Rudy and I was saying the last week on In the Building, he and I both agreed that Texas probably never even should have fired Chris Beard. Honestly, they made a decision on Chris Beard without any context, which is so common among people in 2000 in these days that we live in, where we want to fire somebody because somebody said something. We want to fire somebody because the guy makes a mistake. We want to let's just take his job away from him. And then context gets out and it turns out she didn't tell the cops all the things that she said that the cop said she said, and she didn't want to press charges, and the case never got out of the batter's box. But they fired him, so we can debate whether or not Texas should have fired Chris Beard. Damn sure can't debate whether or not they should have hired Rodney Terry, and they most certainly should not have hired Rodney Terry. That's the University of Texas. Rodney Terry is a fine coach. He ain't Texas material. If you're going to be the coach of any sport at Texas, you better be absolutely freaking elite. in your profession, and Rodney Terry was not. I don't know why my boy Chris Del Conte made that decision. Maybe he felt pressure to promote the assistant. I don't know, because it's a very dramatic time for the program. But again, Chris Beard, he and his girlfriend getting into a fight, they're the reason why there was drama. But UT completely overreacted to it. It made it way more dramatic than it should or had to have been. And maybe they just panicked in the drama. Let's just promote the assistant. It's the easy thing to do, but it was the wrong thing to do. And finally, a couple of seasons later, as Chris Beard's Mississippi gets ready to play in the Sweet 16, which I knew that would happen as soon as they got him. I said, there you go. Mississippi's going to win tournament games quickly. As soon as that happened, didn't shock me at all. Mississippi's winning. Finally, Texas made up for it, and they get their guy. They wanted, I think Chris wanted Sean Miller years ago. Didn't happen. Whatever, he goes to Rodney Terry, but they're making up for lost time now. Sean Miller is an elite coach. Happy for the Longhorns. Happy for Sean Miller. Looking forward to next season. Finally, they'll have a coach who can actually take advantage of the insane talent that the Longhorns are able to recruit. All right, y'all. Love you hard. Back on In the Building tomorrow. Please like, share, subscribe to our channel. We get by on subscriptions, so please subscribe to the Love You Hard YouTube channel for absolutely free. Love y'all hard. God rest George Foreman. I'm going to go make some steak on a grill in his honor. See ya.